Jeremy Lewis, you are the owner at Gleason Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Toolbox for the Trades.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to talk about you. You recently, very recently, took this business over from your dad along with your brother. You made a whole lot of changes in a very short amount of time. But I'm going to kick off this podcast the way I do every single one, which is how did you get into the trades?
So this has been a family business. So my dad, I grew up doing HVAC with him. I have a sheet metal scar on my forehead from when I was a small child. My brother has the exact same one in the exact same spot because we were walking through sheet metal shops when we were 4 years old. And we were going up roofs, helping, I'm an experienced flashlight holder. So I did that a lot growing up, but it's always been, we never had a service guy at our house or anything. It's always been, my dad's always been the one that fixed everything, always had a business, didn't always have this one, but always had some sort of business in the trades. So yeah, that's how we grew up, family.
Nice. Yeah. So your dad was very much always tinkering around the house. I grew up the same way too. My dad's a carpenter by trade. And whenever he would say, hey, come here and help me for a second, you were like occupied for the next 3 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He does this, and he's also a general contractor too. So I got exposed to a lot of different stuff, growing up.
And with the sheet metal scar, did you walk into a piece of sheet metal? How did that happen? I'm just curious.
I mean, honestly, I don't remember because I was a child, but from what I'm told, it was, it was probably something he was working on, and it was the edge of the table. But again, my brother has a matching one in the exact same spot.
That's insane. Like literally, and your brother is younger or older than you?
He's 5 years older than me.
Oh, so it just was history repeating itself?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, when we were younger, my dad was still he was still in the shop. He was still doing a lot more stuff. As we got older, he was out, he was more in the office, but yeah, I don't know the whole story because I don't fully remember, but I do know it's from sheet metal and I do know it's scarred. So
it's almost like you were marked for the service industry at a young age.
Yeah. We're like Harry Potter, but just in a straight line across our head.
Yeah, you're the Harry Potter of HVAC. I love that.
Exactly.
So the company as it is right now, Gleason, was once Gleason and Elfring, right?
Yeah.
And you were the director of sales and business development there for 10 years before you and your brother bought your dad out. So Tell me a little bit about the vision you developed for the company while you were in that role.
So a lot of it started from, it started from reading a book when I was like maybe 20 years old in the summer. So I read, I think I want to say I was 20 years old. It was probably in the summer when I was helping during college. And I read a book called HVAC Spells Wealth. And, it's almost everybody in the business has read this book. But to me, it was interesting because it was the opposite of how we were doing things, because we had always been commercial based, always been project based. So doing it that way was interesting to me because I'm like, oh, there is another way. And then as I got out of college, I pretty much went straight into sales. And, as time went on, I was more into the residential. I was more into the customer service, more into what a repair and replacement business could look like. And as a company, we weren't like that. We did some of it, but not entirely. So I had always seen what it could do. I always knew that with a different structure, our profits could be a lot higher. And also, there was the money is right away. People pay you right away. Commercial, you wait, you got to collect, you have to hold money back. And I wanted to spend aggressively in marketing too. And a lot of those funds weren't there because they were always held back for the next commercial project. So that was the thought. And in the Chicago area, the couple of the biggest companies around here are residential companies. They're huge businesses. And so I always thought, I'm like, I didn't know the answer at the time, but I always thought, I'm like, what are they doing? Obviously they're not doing any commercial work. Because our thought was always, or like what I heard growing up from other people is, you have to do residential for cash flow, but the commercial is what you do in the slow times, or projects. That's what keeps you working all year round. And I'm like, well, there's these other companies that are 100% residential. They're making it work. So, what again, didn't know the answer at the time, but I knew it was possible. And so that was one thing is, okay, I got to figure out how that's the case, because one day if I do end up taking it over, or I go start my own company or whatever, that's what we're going to do. So I took that time to figure out how to answer that question.
That's really interesting. So while you were in that role for about 10 years and you were learning about the opportunities that residential could provide for the company, you were kind of just learning the way the business was, and you were in some ways crafting this master plan in the background.
Yeah, it was in my head the whole time, and again, part of it was on our developing things too, is we would go after a lot of commercial service accounts and have a lot of maintenance agreements. So I kind of ran the maintenance agreements for a long time too on the commercial side. And again, that made me think, okay, well, we've got here, 150 commercial accounts. What if we had 10,000 residential accounts? What if we could get all of those under contract and they paid, and we knew when we started the year, we had however many days of work for however many guys before we did anything. And again, we had always done maintenance agreements, but it was never the focus. It was always less. We did them, we didn't, we'd gain 10 a year and we'd lose 12 a year. It was like there was no attention put on it. So yeah, it had been brewing in the back of my head for so long. And I had seen a lot of things that I didn't like, how they were done. And so when it was fully my time, it kind of just like, I let it all out at once.
Full speed ahead.
Yeah.
While you were concocting this master plan, did you ever bring these ideas to your dad?
Not really. So to a point, but again, the part of it was I knew that we had a structure in place, and I was trying to just make that succeed, so a little bit, and me and my brother had talked about it a little bit more, and yeah, we had talked about it, but not a ton.
Was there any reason why? Was it just like you didn't want to disrupt waters kind of thing?
Oh no, we get in pissing matches all the time. It's not that. It's just that I knew the way we were structured and we were doing things, it would have to be a drastic change. And, at the point in their careers, they being my mom and dad, I don't think the drastic change was something they wanted to go through. And, as I push and push and push, and I can be a pain in the butt to deal with sometimes, but I just knew that I could have no pushback on it. And until I was at that point, I didn't push very hard on it. But, again, when it was my time to do it, then I pushed real hard.
Got it. So when did you make the decision that you were going to buy out your dad instead of just going it on your own?
So me and my brother have pseudo been running the company for a couple of years. It wasn't until my dad decided to fully step away last fall, around last September, October. So almost a little over a year now, that we, fully decided. And me and my brother had the conversation, which was, and I told him, I'm like, listen, we either have to go all in or we should just sell and be done with it. Because there's only two possible opportunities that could come from this. Either we're going to be wildly successful or we're going to crash and burn and fail. So I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? We could get a job somewhere else if we crashed and failed. So that was the agreement, because I wasn't gonna put the effort needed unless I knew he was along for the ride. And he agreed. He said, yeah, let's do it. Let's do whatever we got to do. And then we started hitting it hard.
Got it. So at a certain point, it sounds like you were at Gleason for, many years. You knew the way it was. You had a set idea in your mind as to how to make it better. And all you really needed was your brother's buy-in. And then once you guys took over, you were able to just hit the pavement.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing about the partnership that me and my brother have, we're very similar in a lot of ways personally, but we are complete opposites as far as our business goes. My brother has an MBA in finance. He is a super learned fellow. He's much smarter than I am as far as that goes. but he wants to keep to the numbers. He doesn't want to be like the front person. He never did sales. He was always our controller. So, and I don't particularly want to like pay the taxes every week. Like that's not a super fun part of my day. And I don't know, he gets his rocks off on that. So, he does that, and I run the business. I run the product. You know what I mean? I'm doing that part of it. So again, we actually fit really well, because that's the thing. And the other thing is, I don't trust anybody else with my money. So if he wasn't going to be involved, I was just going to go work somewhere else.
Oh, I hear that. Yeah. I don't get my rocks off by doing taxes either. So you and I are similar in that way.
Yeah. And, I think most don't, but there are the select few that do. And thank God for them,
So when you were brother and you decided to go forth and purchase the business from your dad, did you guys have set rules, guidelines, contracts in place of, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, and we're shaking on it? Or did you guys just already have that trust and understanding that you felt comfortable just going in 50-50?
Yeah. I mean, again, we had already kind of been running things for a while. Not kind of, I mean, we had been, but we had been running it under the same guise as we were previously. But no, there's no other agreements or anything else. I mean, he's my brother. I trust him. I don't worry about it. Have you ever seen Jersey Boys, where Frankie Valli never has a contract with the guy he writes songs with?
Yeah.
And, it's like, well, if you're in a good enough partnership, I'm not worried about my brother screwing me. And then maybe it's naive, but it's, I'm not worried about it.
No, I'm not going to be one who's going to press you to think negatively.
I mean, like anybody else, yeah, lawyer up all day. I don't trust anybody, but him I trust. So no, we just and again, we just fell naturally into the roles that fit us.
That's awesome.
So it wasn't an issue.
That's awesome. Well, you've told me the best part about working with your brother. He loves doing the stuff that you don't like doing. What's the worst part about working with your brother? And the reason I ask is because I love getting into family dynamics on this podcast, because so many service shops are family owned and operated.
Yeah. Well, so if you ask me what was the worst part about working with my dad, we could be here for 6 to 7 days, but I don't have a ton. Honestly, I'm trying to think of bad stuff, but we don't really have anything bad. I mean, we're in agreement on most everything. And, part of it is, again, we have such a good dynamic for a business, because we know neither of us have ever in the history of doing things stepped on each other's toes in the business world. We just don't. And, I know enough that if he says no, stop spending money, I'll stop spending money. He has not had to say that to me in a long time, because things have been going up, but, I'll trust that decision. I mean, I think there's some things that can be, just awkward between brothers as they get older, because so I have 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest. So, I think probably all older brothers or older siblings don't like, are not super great about hearing what their youngest sibling has to say. But again, it hasn't been an issue.
So you took over from your dad in March of 2021, and you assumed the role of president. You started getting to work super fast. What was the first thing you implemented, and why?
So I really took over last fall. We just kind of made it more official in March.
Sure.
But so there were 2 things actually that immediately I knew. Shameless plug, ServiceTitan and Nexstar. Those 2 things, because there was a couple things that I felt like I knew a lot of stuff. And the thing I was most confident in knowing was that there were a bunch of people who knew a lot more than I did. So, I had been a part of, I had been a part of other groups before, but I knew, again, searching the local company, who's my biggest competitor? Why are they doing $100 million a year and I'm not? And then I find out they're a Nexstar member. I'm like, okay. I better find out more about this. And initially my conversation with Nexstar was I actually had called them in um, November of 2020. And I'm like, hey, I'm interested in the area. And they said, no, we don't have any room. And I was like, oh, all right. Okay, cool. And that was the end of it. And ServiceTitan, I had always known that it was better, but it's, it was, we had different thought about things previously, so so we knew that once, and I've told other people at ServiceTitan this, I feel so bad for the original salesperson. I have been pitched ServiceTitan for 3 or 4 years. And I mean, I'd be like interested. Yeah, let's talk about it. No, go back and forth. Okay. And then I think I had called back when, when I knew I was going to do it, and that guy wasn't there anymore, apparently. And I just got another salesman. He's like, do you want to do the demo and let me show you? I'm like, no, I don't care. I'm good. Just let's sign me up. Here's my credit card. How long does it take to implement? And they're like, oh, it's gonna be like 6 weeks. That's not gonna work for me. We're going to go ahead and need to implement like in like a week, like right away. They're like, people don't really do that. I'm like, but I'm good. Let's just move this along. And so that was probably the easiest sale for him. Did he know that somebody else had done 4 years of work, before we did that? But so we got started right away. We got onboarded extremely quick. So it worked out well. And then again, Nexstar, I had gone to them before and they said, no, there's not. And I'm like, all right. Then I later the next year, I had heard the president, Julian, on a podcast, and he said, they asked him something about social media or how you get in contact with people. And he said, yeah, I don't pay attention to anything. The only thing I do is I'll respond on LinkedIn. So in the middle of me listening to it, I'm like, all right, I went on LinkedIn, I private messaged him. Hey, I heard you on this podcast. I tried to join Nexstar and they said no. And he texted me back, call Lisa. This is her number. Send her an email. We'll get you in. And then made it happen from there. So maybe I just had better intention the second time around, but I had stalked him on LinkedIn and I've never told him that, but one day I will talk to him and tell him how I stalked him on LinkedIn.
Well, he actually listens to this podcast, so he may find this out before you tell him. Julian's great. And I actually want to underline this because this is another thing that's going to come up in this season, which is persistence. If you see someone you need to connect with, or you want to connect with a particular mentor, best practice group, sometimes just reaching out and being persistent is the best thing you can do.
To be fair, I was like a little sour about it. I was like, well,
Sure.
Why not? And they're like, yeah, well, we don't take everyone, your area is full. And I'm like, well, fine. I guess I don't want to join Nexstar. And then, as time went on, I'm like, man, I really need to join Nexstar. This is driving me crazy. And it just so happened as I was thinking about that, he popped up on a podcast and so I'm like, well, I'm gonna just go straight to the source. And then Lisa, when I talked to her, she's like, why didn't you just ask why you weren't? And I'm like, well, you said no. I don't know. I'm not, but again, I didn't have maybe enough intention. I didn't have enough effort the first time I did it. The second time around, I knew I'm getting in there. It doesn't really matter what happens right now. I'm going to get it. If I got to drive to Minnesota, I'm doing it.
I love it. So first steps for you were ServiceTitan and Nexstar. And then within just a few months, you began pivoting the business from commercial to residential.
Right.
How was all of this received by the employees that you inherited? And
I think so. My core management group, my install manager, my ops manager, service manager, they were all cool with it. But they're cool with it as long as we have the work, And I think the field guys, there was probably the same sort of thought, which was, does he know what he's doing? Oh God, does he know what he's doing? Why are we putting away all this work that we had? So, and again, it took a little time to get past all that. But again, as we started making these drastic changes, so we had a company meeting this morning, an all company meeting. And, I remember years gone by where company meetings were they were only for negative stuff, And that was one of my things moving forward was when we have meetings like that, it's only going to be positive. What we have one-on-ones with people, that's when we can bring up things that need to be worked on. But so our meeting this morning was very positive, and we actually did a survey with all of the employees on how we're doing. So there, and I told them, I'm like, please be honest. If there's negative things, it's not going to affect anybody. You're helping us make the vision for the future. And now, if I had done this a year ago, it would have been different. But now it's fairly positive. It's pretty positive. I think everyone gets it now. Everybody's in now. It took a little bit, but everybody's in.
Nice. Tell me about some of those early few months as you were doing the transition and you kind of were getting the sense that some folks were like, does he know what he's doing? How did you work through that?
I don't care what people think. It's you know what, it was never super direct, but you hear what's out there, right? It was never super direct, but I do know, I knew I was going to I knew I was right. It didn't, I'm very, if you ask my wife, I'm very stubborn sometimes. And if I know that I'm going to make it work or that I'm right, there's nothing that can stop. So I knew what to do. I knew the style. I maybe didn't know exactly what to do, but I knew to ask the people how to get there. So I knew what I was going to do. So it didn't really, honestly, it didn't bother me at all. I am not easily offended.
Noted. Okay, well, now I'm just going to be really mean for you for the rest of the podcast. I'm
You
kidding.
can try.
So ServiceTitan Nexstar, were the first two steps, did you just have this master list or master checklist that you were just going off in your mind? Like, how did you start operationalizing after those points?
It started by the things I'm not going to do list.
That's always a great list.
I did not have a to-do list. I had a things we're not going to do list. And yeah, so we started there. I mean, the big thing that I knew really had to change available was, we could all see it coming that the people who hold the cards are the people who have the labor force. So I knew we had to set up a training organization. We had to set up training in our company. We had to be able to take apprentices and train them, not just the normal training, you learn on the job, but really put effort into them, really give them all the resources to do it. So that was one thing I knew we had to do that. We had to up the training for sure. And the other thing was we just had a goal, which was we're going to do everything better than the rest of the field, than what everybody else does, which sounds super broad. But what it is we're going to do the most thorough evaluation of the system. We're going to charge more money than a lot of people too, but it's because we're going to do the best part. We care about everything. We truly do. And so that was a part of it, hiring people for character as opposed to what their skill level was, because we decided, we can get guys to a certain skill level. But what we're looking for, like if you're a Gleason guy, like that's what we say. We have all the employees will say, this guy's a Gleason guy. We know he's with us through and through. And if people aren't, there's a conversation that we have sometimes. And so that was the goal is getting everybody as excited as I was and not doing some of the things that I think have negative effects.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I love the idea of a things not to do list. When they say that if you're trying to figure out what it is you want to do with your life, start identifying the things you don't want to do with your life. And that actually is a little bit easier to pinpoint than things you want to do. Yeah.
Well, the first thing was commercial projects. I don't want to do those anymore. They're not, I don't like waiting for my money that long. I don't like, so that was number one. But then we started, all the other things that we had been doing that I wasn't really fond of. So.
Got it. What was it like turning down those commercial jobs, which I know have pretty big sticker prices on them or, paydays?
So initially it was very uncomfortable, but I'm very stats driven. I love numbers. I always have. When I was a kid, I like knew the batting average of every player in the MLB. So like I can tell you, I can rock out MLB statistics from like 97 to 99. Crush it. Um, but so I've always been into that kind of stuff. So you know, I just once I understood the numbers, truly understood the numbers, it didn't bother me anymore because I had realized that we are doing 3 months of work and making no money. You know, sometimes people say making money where it's like, yeah, did your job cost more than what your equipment and direct labor did? Okay. But did your overhead, did you cover that? Did you cover everything else that's involved in that? And once you actually understand the numbers and fully have, you know, what it costs you to do business, those jobs, they're not profitable. They're not profitable enough at all.
Did you have like a math equation or something at your desk that was like showing like that it's not profitable, it's not worth it?
Yeah, well, yes. So we used to bid jobs a certain way. We used to, um, you know, so the way we would bid before is we would bid hourly rate and then we'd figure out what our burden rate was, you know, we'd add that on top and we'd do it by hour. And which again is a fine way of doing it. But and again, Nexstar helped me with this too. There, you know, it cost us a day rate to send guys out to do work. You know, it doesn't matter what's going on, even if it's not a full day hour wise, the other costs associated to running the business are still full every single day. So there's a cost for that. So once we were able to understand what that cost was and apply that to all of our previous projects, you know, like we had a meeting. All right, this is everybody. I worked it out. This is what it costs us to put a guy out there. You know, this is what it costs one truck to run. And then, you know, we get stuff out. I'm like, let's go through all of our other jobs, you know, our old jobs. And it was like, yep, didn't make any money, didn't make any money, didn't make any money, you know. And so, yeah, it sucks. That's why I changed it.
That's crazy. That's really interesting when you break that stuff down. I want to talk about the training that you implemented at the company. What did that look like when you realized that was something you had to do?
The first thing was find a partner to help us, you know. We so we do stuff with Nexstar and their Next Tech training. So we're doing there's an online portion of it where they're going through like essentially like a trade school but online, you know, just like you could do for college. And they'll do online videos, they'll do training, and then it'll come to a test, and then one of our guys that's doing training in here will grade their test. And then they move on from there. Sometimes they get to a point where, hey, we're at this point, but now you have to make a piece of sheet metal in the office or whatever that may be. So they have to come in and physically do it. We started holding apprentice classes on Saturday. So every Saturday we'd have all the group of apprentices come in and it would just be a topic. So, you know, one topic for a month was sheet metal. We had someone come in and just teach them sheet metal. You know, another topic would have been cleaning checks or would have been whatever it would be. So we started doing that. We've actually shifted our focus now where we're not doing Saturdays anymore. Every Friday, there's no apprentices out on jobs. They're in school all day on Friday. So on Fridays, we pair our leads together. And then all the apprentices are in class for 8 hours that day.
Nice. That's
So,
awesome.
which has been very, very good because, you know, having them an entire day is you can get so much done. Like we've seen a good advancement just in that time. And my operations manager, Rick, he has spearheaded all of this. You know, he's like he's definitely a natural teacher, you know, and after one of the seminars we went at Nexstar, he came back and just kind of took it, and it wouldn't be there without him doing it. He took it to a point, you know, even more than or quicker than I would have thought, you know. And so now we have a full classroom that we set up. It's all fancy, and we got like the projector hanging from the ceiling, like in classrooms in school. You know, we did that whole deal. And then right now we're in the midst of building a fully functioning training lab. So we have a little training lab set up now where we have equipment set up, but we're in the midst of building it out so that we have a full plumbing side as well, so that we can set up sinks, so that we can set up a fully functioning bathroom, but where you can see under it, so you can see what the pipes are, everything. So we've just been building towards this point, because again, if we can hire for personality or fit, bring the guys in and train them, if something happens to another employee, or in the best part of it, if we grow, we just have a pool of people we can put in place. And that's the goal. That's always been the problem is, okay, you lost somebody, now we got to try and hire somebody, and it's a disaster. You can't do it that way. So the way we have it now, again, we needed a service tech like 3 weeks ago. Like, all right, we need to get another one out there to get the call volume. Took one right out of the apprentice. Friday he was an apprentice. Monday he was in a truck. No problems. And that was the smoothest, best way we've ever had it done. And now we have this backlog of guys who were almost there or pretty close. And when we need to grab them and pull them, we will. And it's the best way to staff up, is to be able to build something like that.
That's awesome. And I just want to remind everyone listening, this is something that you've implemented in the last year, right?
Yeah, like a really 6-7 months. Yeah.
All right. I'm impressed. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Maybe 8 months. Maybe 8 months. No, it's November. Yeah. Maybe 8 months. Yeah.
Still. That's awesome, dude. I'm so happy to hear that you've got that going and that you're working through that. That is definitely hands down what I'm finding at the podcast, the best way to do this.
You can see in some of the Nexstar companies who are bigger, are really big, they all have it. They're all training like that, because again, they understand that you cannot grow and staff a company by hiring people off of Indeed. It's not possible. It's not. So you have to build them.
That's awesome. During this process, again, very busy year for you, Jeremy. You also acquired a couple businesses. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
We did a couple of things. We acquired an HVAC company. Residential. Yeah, completely residential. So that was the other thought was, okay, well, so there's a couple things. We're going to start turning down commercial work. So if we're going to start turning down commercial work, oh, and by the way, we want to grow. So, okay, what do we have to do to get to that point? Well, it would be nice if we had a lot more calls. So, okay, we're going to market, we're going to build a call center, we're going to outbound, but it'd be a lot easier if we just gained like 5,000 customers, And so obviously the initial thing was, and this has been part of my growth strategy the whole way, is acquisition. So we found a company that was in our area, but not directly where we are, but in an area that we do work in. They were a good sized company and they fit the mold. And when I went and talked to the owners, we got along so well. I knew that they treated their people well. So that was the kind of company I wanted to buy. I didn't want to go buy a disgruntled owner, Sure. I wanted to buy somebody who was good, but it was just ready to retire. And that's how they were. They were great people. And, it worked out really, really well. And then we opened a plumbing division and in June. And so we had to pull from there. And so, yeah, we just kind of, we've done little things along the line that just help increase. But the acquisition thing is it's good. It's a lot easier to buy people. So for us, we're in the Chicago region. It's really hard to buy somebody in November and December when everybody's busy, but you start hitting like February, March, a lot of people start thinking about it again because they're slow. And that to me, that's the time. So, last spring I was like, okay, well, now who can I talk to? And again, I know I've got prospects now, and I know this February or spring I'm gonna buy another one too. So, it's the timing in our area.
What was that like logistically and from a personnel standpoint?
So we gained 9 employees from it. And we have not retained all of them for one reason or another. I mean, we've retained the good ones, but so we actually have done it all through SBA. So the loan process went through SBA. They're just like giving away money at this point. So that was super easy to deal with. And then as far as like the people, we basically said, I'm like, no, I want everybody. I want everybody who comes with the deal. We need it. We need to go up. And then, we retained, 30% of them, I think. I mean, they all came over, but just over time, and again, that's part of, I think you assume you're only going to maybe retain 80% if you do a company. And then there's going to be we're our way of doing it. And if you're
Sure.
not into our way, then, it is what it is. But, we got the customer base. Their customer base was incredible. They, again, because they came from a company with a good owner, with a guy who cared, these were dedicated customers, had a lot of maintenance agreements. And he had actually been, he was not a plumbing company, but he had been next to a plumber. So they had been putting a lot of work, like they had been recommending this guy a ton. So when we came in and we're like, yeah, we do plumbing too, they're like, oh, great. So we actually gained more customers from the acquisition companies as plumbing customers than we did from our original base.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's from that point, it's been really good because now we're marketing all of our products to so many other people. We're doing it all in-house. So it's that's the goal. You want to be able to offer the major trades inside the house.
That's amazing. Now that you're thinking you're going to acquire another business in the spring for your season, what are you going to do differently?
It will go faster this time. I was pretty comfortable doing it. I mean, we didn't get like we didn't get lawyers involved. We had a business intermediary, but we didn't use brokers or anything. I'm pretty comfortable with all the legal stuff. I always have been. So that part wasn't too bad, but what I would definitely do differently is, I know the numbers and the exact science now of what I'm looking for. So the negotiation, there's not a negotiation. This is how much I value your company at. Would you like to do this? Yes or no?
Got it.
And that makes things go quicker. It cuts out the unserious talk, and just because I know what I'm looking for, and if their company doesn't fit what I'm looking for, then there's no reason to have a continued conversation anymore.
Okay. I just want to recap real quick. So we're recording this in November 2021. In November 2020-ish, fall 2020, you took over from your dad, got full ownership, like did it by the book, so to speak, by March 2021.
Yeah.
In the last year, not only have you pivoted the company from being almost all commercial to now being all residential, you joined ServiceTitan, you joined Nexstar, you acquired a business, you opened a training division, and you also opened up a new division, which is plumbing.
Yeah, two new divisions, but yeah.
Electric as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap, man. What does that feel like?
Yeah, we also went through a brand change and a logo change. We changed the name. Yeah. Yeah, it's just
amazing.
Yeah, at some point in it was about August when we had a manager meeting and they were like, can you just not like buy anything for like just like the rest of the year? You just not do anything else because like we're there, everybody, it was hard,
Totally.
But again, but this was the thought that I had. When me and my brother had that conversation, all I needed for him was to say, yeah, go out and do it the way you would do it. That's all I needed. I knew he was behind me and I'm like, well, let's go. And believe me, our conversation was not that polite. It was more like, yeah, F it, let's go, whatever. It was a lot a lot worse. But as soon as I got that, I knew okay, this is the line we have to go down to do it. I've been, everybody says I've been in the business or whatever, but I've seen someone run an HVAC company my entire life. I've never not seen that. So, I'm very opinionated. I've had my opinions on how to do it for a long time. And it was just, I had this plan. So as soon as it started going, and I got other people's blessings and I got my group of guys, my managers and everybody to play along, then we just went for it.
I love that. What advice? So all of those changes that you made, other shops may make one or two of those changes in 1 year and be like, "Ooh, we went through a lot this year."
Yeah.
What advice, or what's like the biggest piece of learning you got from making all of that change in the last year?
So it's like Nike, you just do it. You just got to
Mm,
go. I mean, really what it was I am impatient, and so once I completed, here's the way I thought about it, and this is the way I think about everything in the business too. Once it's handled, I don't think about it anymore. It's done. I remove it from my mind. So, we talked about brand change. Okay, so I got on ServiceTitan. Good. I never have to worry about CRM software again. I'm good. ServiceTitan, handled it. I'm good. All right, I need to be in a best practice group. I'm in Nexstar. I'm in the best one that there is. I'm good. I don't have to think about that anymore. So those were two good things, but I didn't have much to think about. We changed our name. I had Elfering is impossible to spell, and try writing a radio jingle with Elfering. That's hard. Nothing rhymes with it, and it's not a good marketable name. So I knew we had to cut that part out. We had some conversations with some other marketing companies that like want to change you into like Rocket Man Heating and Cooling, or like Surf Dudes HVAC. And I don't like those. I just think they're silly. So anyway, so we just went with that. And again, once I picked a new logo, picked new colors, good. I don't have to think about it anymore. There's no second guessing. Once I made the decision, we just continued to do. And that's how I try and do most all the things is instead of second guessing all the plans that we did, I just followed through with them. And, I had a punch list, and my punch list is not done. I'm still, I still have plenty of things I need to do. But, I did one and moved on to the next, and it didn't take up much space in my mind. I just did it and then moved on.
I love that. All right. So since taking over the company with your brother, you've since grown 40% in total revenue, and you've had a $600 average increase in your average service ticket.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Way to go. What's next for Gleason?
Sewer is next in the business plan. So right now we're doing service plumbing, but we're not really doing much sewer work. So we're going to open a sewer department next year. We're going to expand on our electric division. So right now it's small, it's minimal. We're doing generators, more things like that. By next spring, we're going to be doing. We'll expand those offerings. And then the thing that we've most recently done is we're putting a lot of chips in water treatment. So a lot in our area, there's a lot of wells where we are. There's a lot of older homes. So we're putting a lot of stock in the water treatment. So far, it's great. The profit margins on water treatment are insane. So that is definitely kind of the way I feel like our HVAC division is really good. We've been doing it for the longest, and it's the most structured. It has the most people in place. So I have a really great plumbing division manager right now. So it's just going to work. I'm going to put more attention on that as the year goes, is on plumbing and sewer and expanding our electrical offerings, and then keeping the water treatment moving. So that's thought wise kind of process where we're going is a little bit over there. And then me personally, it's going to be acquisitions and expanding the business like it always is.
That's awesome, Jeremy. I have no doubt that you're going to get it done, and in a year you're going to be like freaking like 4x where you're at now. So we definitely have to catch up. I've got a couple more questions for you. First off, and I think you'll have a good answer for this, is what's your most controversial opinion on the trades?
I have a couple.
Tell me them all.
Now, so I think so the first one I truly think is, at this point, knowing what you know and how you can do it, I think being a plumber, HVAC guy, electrician is more important of a job than I think the general public understands. It is there used to be those advertisements from like the 40s and 50s that plumbers are the health of the nation, and there's a next star member that at our last thing talked about, the difference between us and a third world country is heating, plumbing, and electric. And it's Elaine Damshin. I don't want to just say it without saying who it was. She said this in this class, and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, So I think that's a big part of it. There shouldn't be a stigma on, hey, I don't want to be a lawyer, but I would like to be a plumber, because there's a lot of guys who are in their early 20s who are making six figures being a plumber, and they're doing something that needs to be done. Not that lawyers don't need to, wouldn't be the worst thing if they didn't, but not that. It's just, it's very good. And the other one is everybody, if you join a Facebook group of HVAC guys, everybody once a day, hey, where are you finding guys? There's more people who complain about where to find talent, and a lot less people who are encouraged to train guys. Nobody wants to, and you see it with a lot of guys, they don't want to train the apprentice. They just get out of my way, or just go grab this. Shops are not investing back in the company. That's the big thing now is, we've grown significantly, but a lot of that money that we're getting that's extra is all going back in the business. I'm not growing it for this year. I'm growing it for what it's going to be. So, we're putting in a lot of money per employee, and there's a lot of shops that want to ask why their Indeed ad isn't going on there, but none of them that'll put the time and actually train guys. They want everyone to be perfect right out of the thing, and get all these experienced guys, but it doesn't work that way. Because I know if you're a really good experienced guy, you're probably not going to leave your company. If you're a good one, there's plenty of disgruntled ones out there, but so yeah, I think just a lot of complaining, not a lot of action, and a lot of stuff. And I'm sure that's across the board in most things, but I know the guys who have training programs in place are much more comfortable with their business than the guys who aren't.
I definitely see that as well. Also note on because I think shops like yours are taking the steps necessary to keep their techs trained, helping them with certifications, that kind of stuff. Why would you, as a really good tech, move from a shop that's doing that to a shop that isn't? It's it goes into what else are you getting out of the job, right? And everyone has different internal motivation factors, but I think that's also something that's going to start coming up on play as well.
Yeah, I mean, you want to train them so that they can leave, and treat them well enough so that they don't.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And again, so I was saying about the survey we did this morning. The first two questions were, why do you stay at Gleason? The second question was, what would make you leave? And we surveyed the entire company on that. And there was more questions, but that's the first two things, because we want to know, what are we doing that's keeping you here? And then what would somebody else be doing that would be better, that would think you would want to go? And so we're trying to learn from our employees too. We want to have a good idea. And funny enough, as we surveyed all these guys, there was 2 or 3 things that they thought we could improve on that were consistent throughout the guys. So that's a really good indicator of, okay, yeah, you're right. And I agreed with him. We could do better in that area for sure. And so that's something else we have to work towards. So, I think being in communication with the guys, especially putting that training into them, you get a lot out of it. You get more out of it than what you put into it once, if you do it right.
That's awesome. All right. I got a couple rapid fire questions for you. Don't think, just answer. Are you ready?
Sure.
How do you take your coffee?
I don't drink caffeine, so decaf only.
Okay. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Paul McCartney. Without a doubt.
What's the number one thing you're trying to learn more about right now?
Plumbing. Actual plumbing.
If money weren't an object, so you had unlimited resources, what's the first thing you would do?
You know what? I just want to grow strawberries on a field with hundreds of acres and farm animals around. That's like truly what I want to do. It's like when people have all these things like, yeah, if I had a bunch of money, I would, I'd buy a Ferrari. No. I'd buy a Bobcat, like 3,000 acres, and I would just grow strawberries and, be by myself in a field. It would be awesome.
That's my favorite answer anyone's ever given. What are some podcast book recommendations that you'd like to give the audience?
So book wise, I think it doesn't hurt to start out with HVAC Spells Wealth. There's still some good stuff in it, even where we're at now. As far as industry stuff, I like Can't Stop the Growth. That's a good one. And then also HVAC Masters of the Hustle. That's a good one too.
Nice. What's the number one thing every contractor should do to run a successful business?
Care about the people that you work with.
Amazing. Jeremy Lewis, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.